Have you got a house that needs to go on the market and you're wondering whether or not you should be doing renovations in the midst of your divorce? Or have you got a house that's halfway through a reno? Or maybe you did a whole bunch of renovations during your relationship and you're wondering if that counts. Today's episode's going to be for you. Even if you haven't thought about doing a renovation, but you're just thinking you should tidy up the house and stage it for sale, you should listen to this episode because today we're going to be talking about renovations and staging during the divorce or de facto separation process. Welcome, Mum.
Hello, Laura. Hello, everyone. That's a great topic.
Well, we do get asked this question a lot. What happens? What happens to the money? Who's responsible? Whose job is it? Is it fair? Do people owe things? Like, how does this all work? So we're going to go through all of it today, Ma, and hopefully make this a bit more clear for someone who might be listening today thinking, all right, we are selling the house and I need to do X, Y, Z to the property, or I'm thinking of doing X, Y, Z to the property, or a real estate agent has told you to do X, Y, Z to the property.
Yeah,
just a reminder, Mum is not your lawyer. I am not a lawyer. This is just a general discussion about renovations and selling houses. We're not financial planners. We are not real estate agents. So please get your own independent legal advice, real estate advice, financial advice before making any decision. Maybe we can give you some styling tips, but nothing else. Nothing else. Oh, not at the moment. We've got carpets changed and everything's a mess.
And we'd probably say everything needs to be pink.
Yes. So maybe we don't take our styling tips either.
Styling tips.
Hello, I'm Laura, divorced mother of 3, and I'm here with my mother, Lynette Galvin, with 35 years' experience in family law. You're listening to the Divorce Course podcast. Through our candid discussions, we hope to help you through your divorce or de facto separation. We will be answering the most commonly asked questions and covering the stages and steps that you will face on your way to freedom. So, Mum, let's just start about the staging part first before we go into full renos.
All right.
A lot of people go, oh, well, I need to get this done. I need to make the most out of this property because I'm going to sell it and I want to get the most money I can get out of it. And a real estate agent's probably said to them, look, if you just tidied up that part of this damaged corner of this bench, or if you did a bit of this landscaping, then this will sell for X, Y, Z more money. What do people need to know? What do you usually tell your clients when they come in going, should I be doing this?
Well, I do the typical lawyer's thing, and it depends. If it's a little, like the things that you've sort of described are really more maintenance issues, and to bring the house to the proper standard that it was. So imagine your house, if it was fixed up in those things, not improved, this is more maintenance. And if those little bits and bobs of maintenance, if you can do them yourself, you can do them. If they're going to cost money for you to get them fixed up, even if you're splitting the property with someone else, it can be a big brouhaha, that's an old word, brouhaha, to get them to pay half or whatever their share is. So I think scale matters. I think that the amount matters. If it's like under $50, you might have to suck it up. If it's a couple of $100 and you've got a quote and you've got agreement from the other side, then maybe that will come out of the property pool to reimburse you.
So you're saying before you can do renovations or do any staging or any spending money on house for selling, you need to get buy-in from your ex. Your ex needs to agree that you can do it.
Yeah, that's right. Or you may have to wear the cost of all of that yourself. If you're in court and you can get a consent order, that's all well and good. But the argument is this, right? We didn't used to always style houses. People would go into the teenagers' bedrooms with everything everywhere. And so you'll always sell a house, pretty well always sell a house. The question of how it's presented doesn't really trouble the court much. They just want it sold. So you're pretty well on your own if you're tweaking and improving the house for your own benefit.
Okay, so staging, if you can't get your ex to agree that you're going to spend money on staging, then that's something that you're going to have to cop on the chin pretty much is what you're saying.
That's right, yeah.
So let's move on from staging then. And I guess you've got to decide how much percentage of the house am I going to be getting?
You're learning, and that's exactly what's going through your ex's mind. So if you're doing staging or reno or little staging, let's just say staging, and you're going to be getting 70% of the proceeds, it might be worth your while to do the staging, to get an extra, to get a purchase price of an extra, say, 100,000, of which you're going to get 70,000. And if you take off your couple of grand in staging, you're still laughing. And that's the very reason the person who's not getting a big share of the house doesn't want to spend the money, because if you're only getting 30% of the house and spending the money makes an extra 100,000, it's only going to get you 30,000. And if the staging costs 11 or something, then they're going, no.
Okay.
And if they have a mean spirit, they're not going to help you get all that extra money. So, yeah.
So we've got an episode called Selling Your House During Divorce, and we talk about the pitfalls that you might fall into with the different personality types that you're dealing with. And I think that's something you should really go listen to. Before we get into the renos, the really meaty part, I think you need to ask yourself why. Whether it's you that's wanting to do the renos or your ex is wanting to do the renos, this is if they're asking
That's
to
true.
do it.
Yep.
Is it a trap? Is it a
yes.
delay? Or is it a psychological thing? Because we hear of some people saying, my ex said, we can't get a divorce until we sell the house. And we can't sell the house until the renovations are finished. And they think that they have to sit there and wait sometimes years for this renovation to happen. Do you see this being used as a lever or a trap by some people?
Yes, it breaks my heart. It might not always be a lever or a trap. It might be that one person doesn't want the marriage to end. And as a professor once said at a conference I went to, he said everybody knows that the marriage or relationship is really over once you sell the house. And there is a reluctance then to help sell the house. And even we've had people in where perhaps someone's fled the house for family violence reasons. The person who remains in the house seems to be doing everything they can to not sell the house, sometimes because they're sitting pretty. But you understand, if you show someone through a property and point out every crack, that's different for a buyer than if you go through and talk about how wonderful the view is.
Okay, so just before you go down this reno tunnel that we're going to be talking about, just maybe ask yourself now, have a little think, close your eyes if you're not driving. Don't close your eyes if you're driving. Close your eyes for a minute if you're in a safe space and go, why? What is the real reason this renovation has to happen? What is the real reason I want it, or what is the real reason my ex wants it? Is it because you are emotionally attached to the house and you want it to be in its best way before you let it go? Is it because you've always wanted to do those renos and you feel like not doing it is going to be somehow a failure? Or is it because you're still wanting the relationship to continue? Or is it because your ex is trying to control you through this?
Or, Laura, someone wants the renovations done and then they'll decide to keep the house.
Oh, yes. That's another trap. Okay, so that's all the psychological stuff. I thought I'd just touch on that because all this legal stuff we're going to go into that we're discussing, not giving advice, but discussing, it all is what it is. But if in the lens of what reason you're doing it, it can be completely different answers for you. So your ex all of a sudden says, I want to renovate the house before it goes on the market. Can you just say no?
Yes, you can. You can. The number of times I've seen renovations started and then when people are amicable, and of course, most times renovations means stripping something out or off or removing something. And then the house for that period of time is actually unsellable in its current state. So you may have what you think is an old-fashioned bathroom, but you can always sell a house even if the bathroom's a bit old-fashioned. But good luck trying to sell it if all the tiles have been stripped out, the plumbing's exposed or whatever. It's no longer a functioning bathroom. So you will really lose money on that. So be very thoughtful about doing those things. It's not just the starting, and doing sounds quick, but in my experience, there's a lot of space between starting a reno and finishing a reno, and everything can go really badly in the middle of that.
Do you need an agreement then, a written agreement to start a renovation?
I don't know that will help you. So if you've got buy-in from your ex, at least then if you've got texts and so forth that they agree to pay half, that's fine. But it's still really tricky because the court isn't going to they can't enforce an order that another person is going to do a renovation. They just can't do it.
Right.
You know, they can't make another person do it. And so their job is to take the property as they find it. So if you end up in court before your reno is finished, then they're going to say sell the house as it is. If you're at a stage where you're thinking about renovations and your relationship is so wobbly that you need written consent for that, I'd be very thoughtful about that, because I've just seen so many of them fall at that hurdle of putting things together. I've had one where the walls were pulled out and they were going to reconfigure, like Selling Houses Australia or whatever. And then it's a dump, isn't it? You know? And it doesn't matter. So if you feel your relationship is a little bit on the wobbly side, or if you're considering your options, and let's face it, if you're listening to us, you probably are, don't go down the renovation route.
Okay.
I think that's, can I caveat that though?
Yeah.
Unless you've got the money to do it and you're in the house and you're getting the majority percentage of it, don't expect to get reimbursed from the other person, because they just might not.
What if the house is half renovated? Maybe they were renovating and that's the reason why they're breaking up, because we do hear that happens a lot. And it's unfinished. Or maybe they've been living in the house and it's been half renoed for decades, and that's another reason why they might be breaking up. But what happens there? Have you dealt with things where you've had half renovated houses?
Dozens and dozens of times. And the worst ones are where one person is actually physically doing the renovations on a weekend, DIY. And so those everyone knows a carpenter's house is never finished, an electrician's house never has proper wiring, or the bulbs are blown or whatever. And so that might have been a good strategy when you're still a couple, but it really falls apart when you separate, because that person might say, well, to heck with you, I'm leaving and I'm not doing anymore. And then you've got the house in an essentially unsaleable state, or it's going to have to be sold for a greatly reduced price. And I have had those things. And the court's view generally is, what is the property worth today? What's the property worth today? I've seen court orders where the parties agree, consent orders, to finish certain renovations by certain times. And it never happens, really.
Right. Okay. So if it's unfinished during divorce, you just have to sell it how it is, or they can say you need to finish it, but they can't really physically force you to do it.
They won't order someone to finish a renovation.
Okay.
And I think if you have to have an order, even a consent order, that the other person is going to do these things to get the house ready for sale, that already tells me we're in trouble here. You know.
But that does exist. There are orders that say such and such must do these things to get the house ready for sale.
Yes, but I don't think it's enforceable.
Okay. So it does exist, but it's not enforceable. So Mum says it's
people
a bit
have tried it. Yeah, people have tried it.
Okay. All right. Now let's go on to the next question. So we've just talked about people like, goodness me, I've got to sell this house half finished. What about the renovations that were done during the relationship? So does one person, say, like you said, a carpenter has been renovating the house they've been living in for the last 10 years every now and then, does that count in property settlement? What work they did to the house? Yes.
It's a non-financial contribution. It's a non-financial contribution that gets taken into account.
Okay.
If it improved the value of the house.
Oh.
If they've gutted the house preparatory to doing something else, for instance, or ripped out the kitchen and then left it, then under the new legislation, which is 79.5, I think it's wastage, and it might be actions that have caused a detriment to the property pool.
Right. So it is a non-financial contribution, the work they did, if it happened during the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
What about...
Or before.
We'll get to that one. We'll get to that one. But what about if they've spent money on the materials to do it? Does that count as a financial contribution? If it was in the marriage?
Yes. And one assumes they've also contributed financially to other aspects of the marriage. But it's not, it's probably just coming out of their wages, right? And we know wages don't really get measured up or added up during a relationship.
I've heard of people who've done renos who are then asking to be paid back by their ex. is that a thing, or like you said, it just gets considered as a non-financial contribution in the property pool?
Yeah, it's not a thing. I've seen cases over the years where people have actually rendered a bill
Really?
for it. Yeah. And I've done this many hours of unpaid labour. But no, the court's just going to look at, did it enhance the value of the house?
Right.
What was your contribution to the house? And if you are the person who's done the renovations yourself, you might say, have a look at what the house was worth before you started working on it, what it's worth now. Because it's not dollar in, dollar out. It might be your contributions mean that it's suddenly a 4-bedroom house with 3 bathrooms and now it's worth $700,000 more. That's more than just replacing the tiles in the kitchen, which probably didn't make any difference to the value of the house.
Right. So now let's just quickly touch on before. We do get this question a lot as well. Yeah. I bought a house before I got married. I did some renovations on it, and then my partner moved in. Does that what happens if the renos was done before you were in a relationship?
Well, that's no contribution by the other person.
Okay.
And if you can make a case that your renovations increase the value of the house, then that's it's your financial contribution because of what the house was worth at the time you got together.
All right. The other thing we hear when it comes to renos is parents getting involved. So
yes.
It's hard enough to get a house these days. So people, they're getting a house, it might not be to the amazing level they want it to be. And then the grandparents go, or the parents go, look, I'll give you some money so you can get a renovation done. Does that get counted in the property pool?
Oh, okay. Well, it doesn't really matter what the purpose of the money was, particularly. If there's money coming from a family member, then that's a contribution on the part of the person whose family gave the money. So that dollar figure comes into the relationship. Now, it might have been spent on renovations. There may have been a family trip, but that money, if you applied it to the family, it usually counts as a contribution. And unless it was right at the end of the relationship, it's not a dollar for dollar. It's a percentage contribution.
Because we do hear that people break up and then their ex-in-laws say, you owe us half of what we gave you.
Yes.
So what happens there?
Well, then we get into the realm of family loans and proving whether it was a gift or a loan, right? And the test for is it a loan is that famous case of Biltoft, Biltoft. The test for if it was a loan, if it's not met, don't want anyone to rely on this exactly, but the kind of things they look at, was it documented? It's great if it's actually a mortgage against the house, but have you been paying it back? Because what the court's looking at is, was it the intention of the giver to be a gift or a loan? And has that changed because of separation? And they're going, well, we don't want her to get any of it, right? Or we don't want him to get any of it. And then suddenly it becomes, oh, you owe us that back. So the court is quite stringent in looking at that. And in the absence of the court being satisfied that it is a loan that has to be paid back completely, they will say it's a contribution on behalf of that person, and it might give them an extra 5 or 10% or whatever, depending on the amount of the loan. Okay. Just a tip, Laura.
Yeah.
If you want to show what impact a loan gave, like the money had on the value of the property, I think you can do that. I think you can get your house valued. If you can identify where the money was spent, was it a pool or was it something else, then ask the valuer to give you a valuation as if that work hadn't been done. And you can see whether that majorly increased the value of the property or only marginally increased the value of the property. And the same with if you've done some renovations before you get together and you bought a 2-bedroom house, for instance, for $500,000. You've done work on it, put an extension on it. At the time that you got together, it was a $700,000 house. The way to get the court to see what work you had done beforehand is to ask them to value it without that extension and then what it's worth with the extension. But presumably, if you've done it completely before the relationship by yourself, you won't need to do that because your value is whatever you took in. But if the other person has contributed and they say, we've done this and it made this difference, your valuer is able to retrospectively have a look at things as it was back there before the reno started, as it was when the reno started. That's just a way of like breaking the deadlocks.
Okay. All right. So you're saying it's a really good idea to get your renos, if you're doing any kind of renos or any kind of thing and anything's changing in the house, get a valuation before or after, or get a retrospective valuation before or after. Okay. All right.
And sometimes you get a valuation, and this is where the court can sometimes be tempted, I think, to make an order that they finish the renovation. And that is, you can say, what would this house be worth if we did this job or finished this job? And what's it worth compared to what it's worth now? If, again, the court may order that you be permitted to finish the renovations, and they may make orders about how that's to be paid for, but they won't make orders against the respondent to force them to do things, in my experience, because I've seen they have to go back to court, and it's a minefield of enforcement. Because everyone, remember, in property settlement, the court is basically one and done. When you get your final orders, you're stuck with them. And if there's a problem with enforceability, it's just a nightmare.
So if someone does want to do the renos, then the court might be more likely to say yes because they genuinely want to do it?
They might.
They might.
Yeah,
okay.
But here's a little twist. I'm sorry I keep doing these, but sometimes at X wants to do renos, and it seems their motive, or the impact at least, is that they are always at the house, always in their ex's face. They've always got a reason to be back at the house, and it can be very stressful. And there's a temptation for them to spread it out. And so generally, I think the court takes properties as it finds it. And I've had houses where the walls have been stripped.
Well, okay. So the next question, and this may be triggering for some people. So if this is you, please call 13 11 14 Lifeline or 1-800-RESPECT if you're experiencing family violence. What if someone has damaged the house through anger and smashed walls and broken things, and they've gone, and now this person's left with a house that's got holes in the walls, for example? What happens in those situations?
Well, if you want to keep the house, don't fix the walls. Get the house valued as it is, because it will be cheaper, right? It'll be difficult
for
to
the
sell.
property settlement.
For property settlement. So if you're the one who wants to buy the house, don't go fixing up anything that they've done. The court will just have to take it as they find it. The valuer takes it as it finds it. I wouldn't ask the valuer to ascribe a different price to it if it were to be repaired. So if you're wanting to keep it, you want that price as low as possible, and it's their fault. They've damaged the house. But if you're wanting to sell the house, then ask the valuer to evaluate the house as though there were no holes in the walls and damage to the property, and then as it would be had there been, and then as it is, right? And that difference between what it's actually worth and what it would have been worth if those holes weren't there. So we're not talking about fixing the holes, just if they weren't there. And that difference in price, maybe 20,000, maybe 50, 100,000, that's the other person's wastage of the property pool. And I think it comes into account from the court. We'll look at that and say, look what they've done to the property, you know.
So that's something really important. And I think what you've touched on there, Mum, is the most important thing for everyone, is you've got to decide, are you the one who's buying the house from your ex? Or is your ex buying the house from you? Or are you just selling it and moving on? Because that decision, that helps you make your decision on how much effort do you want to put in to this house. If you're just selling it and it's only going to make a marginal difference, is that worth your time and your effort to do it? But if you're the one who's going to keep it, is it worth making it look amazing to get valued at a higher price, for then you'd have to pay out that higher price? So you've done the work and you've paid more money for the house.
Yes, I agree. And if you keep the house at its lower value and you do the renovations after, or you fix those holes in the wall after it's in your sole name, then you're not reliant on anyone, and you alone get the value of the uplift.
So what do people do then if their ex turns up, sends a letter from the lawyer or an email with all these receipts saying, we would like to be reimbursed for the wall we painted in 2017 and the door we fixed on the toilet in 2020. You're invited to our free webinar. Whether you're stuck at the beginning of deciding to divorce or you're struggling to find your way through the legal jargon and fear of the unknown of the legal process, we are here to empower you to take control. Join us to learn what steps you can take, followed by a live Q&A where you get Lynn, my amazing mum, and family law accredited specialist to answer your questions. All you have to do is go to www.thedivorcecourse.com.au and click on Reserve My Seat. We'll see you there. Hurry, spaces are limited, so don't miss out. Register today. So what do people do then if their ex turns up, sends a letter from the lawyer or an email with all these receipts saying we would like to be reimbursed for the wall we painted in 2017 and the door we fixed on the toilet in 2020?
Well, what I would say to my client, if I received those things from the other side, I would say these things are evidence of contributions to the renovation. They are not to be repaid dollar for dollar. However, the percentage increase in the property as a result of their efforts probably adds up to more than the receipts. Although I have heard of people putting in tennis courts or other things that are pretty well useless in the modern world. People don't pay more for those things. And then you might say, well, the work was done, but it didn't increase the value one little bit.
Mm-hmm. What about if you really desperately do want to do the renovations? You've looked at all the reasons and it makes absolute financial sense for you to do what the real estate agents told you to do or whatever.
Yep.
How do you get your ex to agree? Because sometimes exes just go nuts.
Just won't.
Yeah.
Yes, and it won't make the best of the property pool. So there's a distinction, isn't there, between adding a wing on the house or just tidying up that corner of the cupboard, replacing the tiles on the splashback, maybe paint the kitchen, those sorts of things. If you really want to do that, and if you went to court and asked the court, could you do that to the joint property? The court may make an order, but it will be because you're the one who wants to do it. You might say, can I have $30,000 out of the money in trust? I propose to do these things with the money and then we'll be able to sell the property quicker or we'll get more for the property. A court may be persuaded to make an order because they can enforce the order giving you money, right? And then I think the order would more be that the wife be at liberty to effect renovations to the property as outlined in her affidavit or, something like that.
What if your ex decides they're doing a renovation, they haven't asked you, and then they send you a $50,000 bill for a bathroom upgrade? What do you do in that instance while you're going through divorce?
I think you say, look, that'll have to be, remains to be seen if that renovation improved the value of the house. And if it did, you might look at the amount that it improved it. And again, I think you go for the valuer to look at if that hadn't been done and compared to what if it now it has been done, what would the two different values be? And if they've spent $50,000 to increase the property by $20,000, then that's the extent of their contribution, $20,000. If they've spent $50,000 and increased the property value by $100,000, well, then they've made a contribution that's relevant to the property pool because it's a post-separation contribution and increased the value of the property pool.
Right.
Laura, I know this isn't really a renovation, but a lot of times, and maybe we should explore this, it's a bit niche though, but a lot of times people have houses or land with development approvals or it's been rezoned and someone's going to make a lot of money if they can just hang on to it and do the next stages. Reality is the court will look at that as it is today. What's it worth? What would a buyer, a willing but not anxious buyer, pay for it? And that's the price, even though it's got all of this potential and it was probably part of the couple's dreams. We'll do this, we'll build these units, we'll live well ever after. That's all gone. We're just left with a piece of land that either has the approval or is halfway through the approval or has potential, and the real estate agent will value it accordingly. But that, if anyone's listening and that's their situation, the court doesn't tie people together going forward. Their aim is to end the financial relationship between you both. So if you go to court for property settlement, the court is going to end the relationship between you both. Financial relationship. Section 81. Yep.
So my next question was going to be, can you have renovations in your consent orders? Because I want to harp on a little bit more if you're listening. There's people that are stuck in houses where their ex has said, let's not do property settlement until the renos are done. This house is house has been sold and we've liquidated all our assets into cash. Then we'll have our property settlement.
So who died and made them boss, right?
Okay.
Selling everything and turning it into cash involves cost. And renovating a property, I've already said, is not something that a court that accords with the family law court. Section 81 says they've got to end that financial relationship between you both. So if anyone's sitting at home thinking you're stuck because this hasn't happened or that hasn't happened, it's not the case. The court never goes, well, hardly ever goes, oh, well, we can't finish this off. We can't do property settlement because this is waiting. The thing that allows the court sometimes to adjourn a property proceedings is not that renos need to be done or I don't know, whatever it is that needs to be done. The only time they will do those adjourning is if one of you is likely to come into a lot more money and your financial circumstances are going to change, then it makes sense to wait. Otherwise, the court will go, all righty, so this is, the 16th of this month of this year. What's that worth today? And that's all they're looking at. So if you're stuck in a house, ask yourself, are you being held there by a manipulative and controlling person who's just not letting you have your settlement? Is the person waiting for the value of the house to go up so high? Because at the time of recording this in December 25, house prices are going up. They might want it to be a situation that you can't afford it. You can't afford to buy them out or that they get more cash. So there's a lot of reasons at the moment to stall. They may also, Laura, if they're avoidant, just don't want the relationship to end.
Yeah. And so really what we're trying to push to everyone as a reminder today, renos can be a tool. They can help you make more money to have a bigger property pool for dividing up, but they can also be a massive trap. And we're seeing a lot of people in this trap. And like you said, Mum, the courts look at the property as it is and the value of it as at the day that you have your mediation or at the day that you step in that foot of the court door. You step your foot? No?
Yes,
you get your foot
in the court door.
So you really need to be thinking about those kind of things. Go and speak to a financial planner. Go speak to an accountant. If you are going to do renovations, you need that clarity. You need it to be very clear and have an agreement with your ex. Like Mum said, it's really hard to enforce renovation kind of things. So be mindful of that if you're going to go down that path. Also be mindful that the court wants to finish your financial relationships. They don't want you guys still having to deal with each other 5 years from now.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So I see that all the time. See, the court, by and large, the court shouldn't and won't make an order that they can't enforce. So they can't make your ex come around and finish the tiling in the bathroom or finish that wall in the lounge they were doing. So if you must do renovations, and you can get buy-in from your ex about it, you need to, in your orders, I'd say, specify the amount to be paid and the proportions in which it's to be paid. And third person or yourself, it's if you'll do it, if you can do it, you can finish. If the renovations are within your capacity, then you're not so worried. You'll finish it and get it ready for sale. Don't rely on your ex, even though they may be very good at styling or renos. Your preference is get buy-in for the dollars and then get a third party to do it. And that way there's orders that each of you will, engage this person or that you be appointed as the person to engage someone to do this job. But it is a minefield. And, if it's not enforceable, even if it sneaks through as a consent order, ask yourself, what's the court going to do if your ex doesn't do these things? They can't make them, right? They can't jail them for not doing things. In the end, you're stuck with a house that isn't quite renoed. And so that they shouldn't make the orders at all, in my opinion. But if they do, they may say, we can't enforce those orders. You'll need to go to the civil courts. And then you've lost your family law space.
So we're really getting the vibe here from Mum. You think that renos, if you don't start renos unless it's absolutely necessary in your divorce process, We always say this for everything, but document everything. If you're halfway
Yes.
through a reno, or if you just have a little chronology of what discussions have been done, when things were started, when things have finished. Keep all the information you can in case you need it later. Mum, you touched on getting valuations. Now, can we just quickly touch on, because we do hear a lot of people going, oh, I got a valuation. I got that done. What are the two types of valuations, and what are the only valuations courts actually care about?
So there's, in my mind, there's two sorts. If you're reasonably amicable and you can reach an agreement on a price, then you don't need to get a valuation. The agreed value of something is that. And the way that people reach an agreed value usually is by getting kind of input from real estate agents, right? And I found the most reliable way is for your ex to get 3 real estate valuations. They used to charge $50 or $100 to give you like a list, what they'd list it for, what they think it'd sell for, and you get 3. So then you've got 6 values, and I'd add them all up and divide by 6 and say, do we agree? That's the figure. And then if everyone agrees, you don't need to get a valuation. But don't try waving those around in court. If you don't agree on the figures, it's no good putting your 3 real estate letters up and he puts or she puts their 3 real estate letters up. No, that won't work. So what works in court is a proper valuation by a registered valuer. And these are the same people who value properties for banks and financial institutions. They are really normally quite conservative. So there's no, I reckon I can get you this in the current market. And really, they're usually lower than the real estate agent's idea of what a place would sell for, because the agents are selling houses all the time and they know what houses that haven't yet finally sold are going to sell for. They know all of the contracts that are out there and what the appetite is in the market, where a valuer is working on historical. So they will work on what a house sold for last month, and this one down the road sold for this, and it's a little bit better than yours, so we'll reduce the price. But what they don't know is what it sold for yesterday, what someone would have sold yesterday.
So it's important, because I do hear people, though, they say that I got a professional valuer, but my ex doesn't agree with the value. So how do you make sure that this valuation isn't a waste of your money?
It's a very good question. The way to make sure the valuation isn't a waste of your money is to reach an agreement with your ex to get a valuer. And that person, that valuer, would be your single expert witness. So if you end up in trial, you've got one number for the judge to contend with and one valuer. So don't go and pay for your own valuation without getting buy-in on the valuer, because the other side might go, I don't agree with that one. I don't like that valuer. I don't believe it. So what you're kind of doing is, between you choose kind of a referee, you choose your valuer. So you give maybe a list of 3 valuers. They choose one, right? You do a joint letter to the valuer. And basically what you're saying is, whatever this person says, we'll agree to it. They're the rule. That's the rules. They're going to make the decision. And then you sit there and hope like heck that it comes in lower if you're trying to buy the house, or higher if they're trying to buy the house, or higher if you're going to sell it. And when it comes back, generally, one person is disappointed, but they're stuck with that valuation until you get to trial. You can, under the single expert rules in the court, write a letter or 2 and ask some questions. But otherwise, that's the value the court will work off, and you can cross-examine that person when you go to trial as to, did they know this other house sold for that, or did they notice the cracks in the stumps or whatever?
So it's a good idea to get your ex to agree first before you get a valuation on which valuer to use, because once you've got that written agreement, then there's no backwards and forwards later saying, I don't agree to that valuer, because I do hear that valuation fights a lot.
Oh, and that's the reason the court introduced the single expert, because we used to have dueling valuers. And in fact, they used to swear them both in at once and have them argue. But yes, and remember, if you don't have to wait to court to get a valuer. You can use those valuation single expert rules. And then if you do end up in court later on, close to trial, and it's been a year or 6 months since the value, that same valuer can update their valuation, and it's not the same cost as getting a new valuer.
That's good. And if you go to mediation, at least you've got one figure to work off, and you're not arguing over the value of the house. You're not wasting your precious mediation time arguing over the value of the house. You've got that sorted. So that's really helpful to keep in mind if you are going through this. Really, Mum, you're saying be very careful if you go down the renovation route after you've broken up. And if you've been in the renovation situation, go and get your legal advice. Make sure you're not being tricked or bamboozled or threatened, or if you leave, you're going to have to pay all my reno fees. So just be really mindful of how that all works. It all falls into contributions, non-financial contributions usually, in Australia anyway.
Or wastage if they ruin the place while you're gone. And that wouldn't be, that's happened many times.
Those TV shows in the 90s where they'd swapping rooms and they'd renovate their bedroom and they'd renovate their bathroom and they'd paint it purple and put checkered floors. And it was just horrific. And you could see their faces going, oh my, you've just reduce the property price of my house.
Yes.
So that's true. Renovations could make it worse. All right. So make sure, guys, you're documenting, you're getting clarity, you're getting valuations, and you are making sure that you are not being manipulated and you're asking the hard questions why when it comes to renovations.
And you're not trapped.
Yes.
Don't let that be the trap that holds you where you don't want to be.
Yeah. Mum, if you're going to embroider anything on a cushion?
I think I would just say it's just a contribution.
Okay.
Because that really is the theme of renovations in anything.
And I know we didn't really touch on it in this one but we have in the selling houses. But, oh my goodness, adding a renovation to let alone staging the house. Like I had to stage the house, packing everything up, and then staging the house, and then doing open homes and all of that nonsense. And imagine doing the renos. Like that is so much on top of going through a divorce or a de facto separation. It's just unfair on yourself. And really, I hope people are taking into consideration not just the value that it will add to the property, but also how much is it going to take away from your ability to just survive this moment and keep your mental health in check and your body's nervous system in check, and is it worth it for yourself mentally as well as monetarily?
And if it's worth it today, what if house prices suddenly drop? What if you're in the middle of a reno and suddenly the house is just getting less and less and less? So the only certainty is what it would sell for, or reasonable certainty is what it would sell for this week or this month. You're really gambling that the market prices will keep going up, and they may not. We've had bubbles in house prices before that have burst, and people's mortgages are greater than the value of their house. So I know it's hard because our audience is probably younger than that, but this old girl, I've seen that happen, and it's a tragedy. And so maybe it's better to grab what you can now without kind of be really playing a gambling game.
But Mum's not doing any financial advice. She's just saying her opinion.
Just practical.
If you are not already on our mailing list, we send out emails probably once a week, usually. Sometimes I didn't do it this week. We give out sometimes freebies, checklists and guides. You can also download our free disclosure checklist. If you're listening to this episode, you're probably up to the disclosure phase. Go and download that checklist on our website. Go to thedivorcecourse.com.au and you can go up the top and go to the free resources section. And if you get on our mailing list, I promise you it's great. It's an extra bit of support for you.
It.
And people love it. And I love writing them. So
and with the podcast, we have links as well.
Yes. Yep.
And things.
Yep. So we're always keeping people up to date as well. So it's a good little bit of extra support for you. If you're not on our email list, I would suggest jumping on it. Now, Mum, we also every month read out a comment from someone.
Yes.
So this is from Janet. She said, I cannot believe what a brilliant mother and daughter combination you wonderful ladies are. So wish I'd found you 19 months ago when DV struck our family. Having just changed solicitors in combination with your invaluable advice gives us courage to ask the questions we know need answering in order to protect the children, which hasn't been happening to date. Your podcast should be number one priority for all women in these situations. Bless you both. So that's Janet.
That's
and Janet,
lovely,
if you're listening to this episode, give us an email at thedivorcecourspodcast@gmail.com and you can have a free chat with Mum. If you would like to have a free chat with Mum, we do this every month. We choose one lucky commenter from YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and we choose someone to have a chat with Mum. So this time it's Janet. And hopefully we'll get you on a mailing list so you can get some of our freebies and checklists as well. All right. Thank you so much, Mum, for your time.
Like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, my dears.
Yes.
So you can pay it forward.
Yeah. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks, Mum.
Bye, Laura. Bye, everyone.
If you found this podcast helpful, we'd love it if you could rate, review and subscribe. By doing so, you are spreading the word to help someone else just like you. Lynn would like to remind you that this podcast is general advice only, and you should always get legal advice in relation to your particular situation. And remember that the Australian laws may have changed since recording.